Okay, so up here at the top, if you want to write hands. Now we're just going to be looking at the basic structure of a hand. We're not going in a lot of detail because with our figure drawings, our figures are actually fairly small on the page. If you think about it, if I give you a 50% to 100% of the figure you have to show, that means that the figure is going to be fairly small just because we're showing most of the body. So I'm not going to go into high detail. We're just getting the basic logistics and proportions of the hand. Now you might have to look at your hand as we're drawing. We're going to do a couple different perspectives, one with the hand looking at it from the back, one looking at it from the side, and one looking at it from the palm view. So if we're starting with the hand facing to the back, you're going to start with the square or a square for the main hunk of your hand, and it's going to look very simple when we're starting. Okay, so you're going to put on a square to start. Now the height of your palm, okay, or this main big section of your hand is the same height as your fingertips. So we're going to draw almost, or an imaginary square on top, okay, the same height as our first original square, and our fingers are going to fall here in the second square on the top, okay. The only thing is our hand has some arcs to it. It's not a straight line across right here. Typically, if you're looking at your knuckles, your hand or your knuckles kind of go up and down at the top of your palm, and your fingers are also not straight across. They're also going to go up and down as well. And that's where you get that little mitten shape when you're drawing hands quickly. Most people draw mittens because of the shape of that arc, and a mitten is designed to go over your hands, so therefore it's going to have that arcing shape as well. Okay, so you just want to make sure that you have the right height. So this height in red is equivalent to this height of your fingers. Okay, this is the halfway mark on your hand right here. Okay, so just pay attention to that proportion. Your thumb actually protrudes out from this square, and it's not part of the square. If you draw, or if you imagine a line coming down here on your hand, okay, at this point, your thumb is actually going to jot out with a triangular shape. And then your thumb is connected to that triangle, and I want you to think of your fingers as cylinders when we're starting. Okay, just basic forms. Okay, so that's going to be my placeholder for my thumb. Now, you have 4 fingers up here at the top as well, so you're going to divide this little mitten into 4 equal sections, and those also become cylinders if you're just thinking of the basic form. Okay, we all know how to draw cylinders and cubes and cones and pyramids. Okay, use what we know. Now, our finger does have joints, right? We have 2 joints on our finger. The first joint is halfway on your finger up, so we have to find the halfway mark on our drawing between our top of the hand right here and the tips of our fingers. So that would be what, like right in here would be the next half. And that's where our next set of joints is going to lie. You do have to mimic this arc. Okay, then you're going to divide that in half again between this new joint. Okay, so between this part and that part, the tip of the finger, you're going to divide that in half again to find where the second joint is going to fall, and it also has to arc. Okay, so I kind of like to draw it out before I put in my joints so I know where they go on my fingers. And then I can come in here, and we're keeping things pretty simple. If you're looking at your knuckles or your joints here at the table or right in front of you, the skin types or tends to fold and you get little creases in it. So usually I just represent some little creases, kind of like that, where that joint will be placed. And that will catch some shadow when you are drawing. Okay, to keep it, again, we're keeping it super simple. So you're gonna kind of put in little creases of where that joint might be. if your hand is fully extended out, and you could shape these fingers a little bit more, you know, I could come up here once I'm done and kind of round the top of that finger. In that placeholder of that cylinder. Okay, maybe there's a little gap in the finger there. Okay, so that's the basic logistics. Your hand comes down and connects to your wrist and your arm the rest of the way down. Now your thumb has a little bit of a curvature to it as well. It's not a pure straight on cylinder. It tends to flare out a little bit if you're looking at it at the table. You know, that might be my fingernail and it might bend back. And everyone's thumb's a little bit different. So your hand is your best friend. It's your model for what we're doing. Okay, so it's kind of the basic structure of a hand. This is looking at it from the back view. If you are doing a lot of detail, or you can see your hand closer up, maybe your hand is coming right at you in your drawing, so it's bigger and it has more detail. Don't forget you also have knuckles here, which are going to catch highlight. So you're going to keep it lighter here on your hand. And then you have tendons that pull back as well. So there might be some highlight here when you're shading. Okay? So it's kind of the basic layout from the back view. If you turn your hand sideways, okay, so you're taking it from the back and you're turning it, you're looking at this square from pretty much the side of a cube, right? A square comes from a cube. So if I turn this hand and I convert it more into a cube so I can see this side of the hand, all right, the structure is the same no matter how you pivot and move your hand around. So this little triangle part for your thumb right here extends from the same spot. Okay, but now since I'm looking at it sideways, it's going to fall more forward perhaps. Okay, my thumb's attached right here, so that doesn't really change. Okay, so let's say I'm just kind of in a relaxed position. My thumb is right there connected to the triangle. Then my fingers are going to sit on the top of this cube. Now I have 4 fingers up here, so I could plan out where my fingers are going to set, right? 1, 2, 3, 4 ovals. They're going to set right on top of this cube. Now, your fingers are also built of cylinders, so I could keep it going straight up. You know, if I'm drawing my hand sideways with my finger fully extended, maybe something, you know, like that if you're watching my video here. This is one big cylinder. My finger's hyperextended, but it's broken in half here with my knuckle and half here with my second knuckle, which means essentially this finger is built up of 3 little cylinders stacked on top of one another, kind of like that. Now, if I bend my finger, I'm going to rotate it at the joint. So perhaps this cylinder here that's green is now bent, and I want it to bend this direction. So if I bend it, keeping the length the same, okay, and then maybe my second section here, this blue guy is also bent, I can create movement in my finger. Okay, and then maybe that's my little nail right there. And then I connect with my joints in between to create a hand that has some bend to it. Okay, now the inside of your finger tends to have more puffy pad. Okay, you can look at your finger there at the table, so you want to represent that a little bit in your drawing, kind of puff it out on the inside. Give yourself a nail to give yourself movement in the finger. Okay, and you can do anything with your fingers. You know, if I want to come in here and draw this second finger here that sits right here, I could pull it up. Okay, imagine it coming through, it goes behind, and then it comes out this direction, and then maybe I can see some of it popping out right there. Okay, so use your hand as a model. It's going to be your best friend. You can also use some images. Maybe this finger is fully extended, which actually would be very hard to do. You guys know it's hard to extend your ring finger? It's like connected to all your other fingers. Okay, so, but this is an imaginary world, right? So maybe that's my ring finger sticking up there. Okay, so you can really kind of play around with it, do some funky things with your hands if you want to. Okay, if you rotate this and look at it from the palm, okay, if you're looking at the inside of your hand, very similar to that first drawing we did, you're going to start with a square, but instead of doing a triangle for your thumb, you're going to actually use a sphere, because the inside of your hand that's attached to your thumb is kind of rounded and puffy, and your thumb comes off of that. Okay, so it's a little bit different approach from the palm. This is the palm of your hand. Okay, here comes down into your wrist. Okay, and then of course your fingers. Your hand, when you are doing anything, it's very rare that it's hyperextended. Usually in a relaxed position, your fingers have some sort of bend to it. So you do want to try to make your hand look natural, and in order to do that, I would encourage you guys to have some sort of bend. Okay, so you can kind of relax your hand with your palm up at your table and use that as a guide, but you know you have 4 fingers, so my 4 fingers have to be equally distributed across my cube. If my hands were extended, they would come all the way up to here, but if I'm bending it, it won't reach that height because I'm going to have some foreshortening if they're falling forward. Okay, so if you do have some foreshortening in your fingers, what I would encourage you to do is think about these 3 cylinders, okay, that make up your finger. So maybe this first cylinder comes up to about right here, and then maybe it bends just slightly. Maybe it comes towards me a little bit, so I have a little bit of foreshortening and a little bit more foreshortening, possibly like that. Okay, I have 3 increments. They don't reach all the way to the top because it has foreshortening, it's coming at me. Okay, maybe my next finger, okay, maybe this first link goes straight up, it's not coming at me, but the second link on this finger comes right at me and I can't see it. But I can see the link, this top link at the top coming at me. It might look something like this. There's the nail at the top. It's coming right at me for my next finger. Okay. Then if I move down from there to my ring finger, okay, maybe again it comes up. Maybe I can see some of the second link coming at me. Maybe it overlaps a little bit. That next finger, there's my fingernail. Comes down and connects to my hand. My little pinky, same thing. That link is coming at me. That's the tip of it. There's a little bend. Okay, and my hand might look something kind of like that. Okay, kind of erase the areas that are overlapping. Okay, so just get it close, model it out, find something that feels right. Okay, this part of my hand might have a little bit more roundness to it if I'm looking at my wrist here at the table. And you can kind of touch up the areas that you don't need. Okay, so it's kind of the basic approach to hand drawing. Okay, are there any questions on hands?